And joining us tonight, the man by whom the Francisco Doctrine was named after, Atty. Ernesto Francisco. He was a petitioner in the landmark Francisco versus House of Representatives case, which questioned impeachment rules. Good evening to you, attorney.
Good evening to you.
You see there is a problem in these two impeachment complaints?
Yes, because the Supreme Court ruling in the case of the Vice President says it's immediately executory. That's why the Senate and the House stopped. So based on that ruling, there are certain pronouncements of the Supreme Court which should be incorporated in the House rules on impeachment. So with all due respect, I think what the House of Representatives should have done was to pause and adopt the ruling in the Vice President's case and adjust or revise the impeachment rules.
The process.
Yeah. What's very
May I interrupt you there? Because we had Rene Sarmiento here, and he said that the old rules still take in effect. This is his view, because there are still pending motions for reconsideration before the SC.
I disagree. It's immediately executory. We have to follow. Now, if there's an adverse ruling later on, then we adjust. That's the rule, that's the practice. We have to comply with what is in the Duterte ruling.
Okay.
Now, there's a very important provision there which applies to this case. In that ruling, it says that all the congressmen be given copies of the impeachment complaints during the 10 session days when the impeachment complaint is referred to the
Justice Committee.
no, included in the order of business. And or it's referred to the committee. So
Just
this
to
not
make it,
automatic.
just to laymanize it, attorney. So, plenary muna for 3 session days where all the congressmen can discuss it before it gets referred to the Justice Committee for another 10 session
Precisely,
days.
because the meaning of initiation is that there is the filing and initial action of the House. The initial action of the House is the referral to the Committee on Justice. Now, under this Duterte ruling, that is not done blindly. It should be done, they use a deliberative. It's a deliberative
Everyone in the House of Representatives has to
study. Oh, hindi na automatic, unlike before, na pag refers order of business, refer kagad sa Committee on Justice. Now, I don't know, I'm just basing this on news reports, but with what the House of Representatives did, the effect is that they referred first, the first impeachment complaint to the Committee on Justice. That already barred the second impeachment complaint.
They consolidated it. That's what
They
said.
do not have, okay, with all due respect, I heard the chairperson of the Committee on Justice say that they will consolidate. But what the Supreme Court said in the impeachment case of the Vice President is that consolidation may be done by the House in plenary during the 3 session days before it is referred to the Committee on Justice. That's very clear. It's the plenary who can do the consolidation. Now, if you look at the present House rules on impeachment, there's no provision on consolidation.
Correct. It is a gray area, but we kind of started taking it as kind of the norm because the last time, when they were trying to impeach or when they did impeach VP Sara Duterte, what happened was supposedly the SecGen sat on these 3 complaints and they used the third mode, which is the 1/3 vote. But what the congressman did was to file that 4th complaint using a consolidation of all the articles in the first 3 complaints. So you're saying that consolidation it's not actually explicitly provided for.
It's not in the rules on impeachment. The House should amend the rules first in compliance with the Supreme Court ruling.
What does this mean? What is the immediate impact of this? May impeachment complaint pa ba o wala?
The immediate impact, in my opinion, is that the incumbent president is already immune for 1 year by the first impeachment complaint, not the second impeachment complaint.
That is your opinion.
Yes, because there was a filing and there was an initial action, which was the referral to the Committee on Justice.
And
That's done.
the inclusion in the calendar
Yes,
as well.
order of business, then referral to the Committee on Justice.
So for you,
So they
attorney,
achieved what they wanted, if that
Yeah.
is what they wanted. So there are suspicions that it was meant to protect the president, actually, to shield him from real complaints. This is not a real complaint.
I cannot comment on that because that will be speculating. But I have read the complaint, the first impeachment complaint.
Papasa ba
And
yun
I have
sa
my-
sufficient
I have
in form
my-
and substance?
I don't want to preempt the Committee on Justice, but it's available in the internet. All the lawyers can look at it and come up with their own conclusion.
tell us your thoughts, attorney, based
Yeah.
on reading it. What do you think? Is it, without going into the merits of the case,
I have filed.
was it sufficient?
I have filed a couple of impeachment complaints in the past. It might be dismissed for insufficiency of substance. Insufficiency.
Of course, a lot of the criticism against this first impeachment complaint, the one by Attorney Andre De Jesus, a lot of the criticism was ginamit na proof is mga reports, media interviews, things like that, diba?
Nothing substantive to back up the complaint.
Yeah, the rulings kasi when you use newspaper reports. No. But I'm not prejudging his complaint. Maybe it will also muster enough votes in the Committee on Justice.
Let's follow that train of thought, Attorney, where you said the House should have amended their internal rules right after the Supreme Court ruling on the
Yes.
VP Sara Duterte impeachment came out, which they didn't.
I wonder, though, if I may
Yeah,
interrupt your
go
question,
ahead.
why would they do that when they themselves filed an MR? It would be as if they are submitting themselves to the ruling when they are appealing it, in fact.
They can do that. They could have done that without prejudice to their motion for reconsideration. They just have to put on record that in the meantime they will comply because it's immediately executory. Take note that both the Senate and the House complied. Otherwise, nagtuloy-tuloy yung Duterte impeachment.
But they didn't comply with that part, which is to amend their own rules, diba? So now that we find ourselves here, is there still a way for them? I mean, it is their own rules. It is their prerogative. Can they, kumbaga, attorney, change their rules now in the middle of the game?
At this point,
Having
Yeah,
realized
can
maybe,
somebody point out, oops,
oops, uy,
Mali.
dapat pala. Maybe after listening to this interview, they could be like, ding, like who knows, right?
No, nothing
No.
can be done anymore because there are two impeachment
The
complaints
deed
that
was
were
done.
Yes, and chances are whatever will be the outcome of this will go up to the Supreme Court at least for the next 1 year.
So for you, attorney, the one-year bar is already in effect.
Yes.
But there are some discussions among academics. Professor Tamase earlier, we ran that item where he was saying there's some confusion because of the Duterte ruling, which says that the one-year bar starts not from initiation, but from when a complaint is dismissed.
That's
Can you explain
No.
that to us?
Yeah.
Does that...
Did
there
that-
are as many opinions as there are lawyers,
Yeah.
I have to say.
Did you encounter that though when you read? I know because attorney has the copy of the
Yeah,
Supreme Court
I've
ruling
read it
there,
several
right there.
times. That ruling applies to that specific situation only.
What
Where-
situation?
Where the Secretary General and somehow the Speaker sat on these three impeachment complaints. And the Supreme Court said that effectively there was dismissal. And that's a bar to the
Ayun na yun,
Court.
the act of sitting and not acting was the dismissal.
effectively it was a dismissal.
And so you cannot stretch that dismissal to mean the procedure in the Committee of Justice, correct? Because what he's saying is that it's the Committee on Justice that has to dismiss, right? And that is when the bar starts.
No,
Ano ba?
in fact that's the
Nakaka-confuse.
Oh, that was the rule before that was invalidated by the Supreme Court in the Francisco ruling. Before it was the Committee on Justice has to come up with a decision finding the complaint sufficient in substance. And the Supreme Court said in the Francisco ruling, filing plus initial action of the House in plenary by referring to the Committee on Justice, that starts the one-year bar.
That's the start.
Yes.
Going
So
into this,
wala ng Francisco doctrine.
No, it's there.
Binura na.
No, it's there. In fact,
Hindi, because The new ruling on the Duterte impeachment is different.
No, it modified a little, just a little, the Francisco ruling,
Wala na
which
kayo sa history
applies,
books.
which applies to the first mode of impeachment. Impeachment filed by a citizen, endorsed by a member of Congress, or by a member of Congress himself. Now, that ruling, the Duterte ruling, is more on the second mode. When the impeachment is initiated by at least one-third of the House, doon marami na talagang rules to implement the due process clause of the Constitution.
Actually, when we interviewed Representative Jervil Luis Trujillo, the head of the chairwoman rather of the Justice Committee, she said nga that SC ruling on the VP Sara impeachment, it really only has to do with the one-third mode, which is the third mode, diba? Yung one-third members of the House agreeing. So now you're saying that actually na-tweak din yung ibang modes
Yes.
in that Supreme Court ruling.
Yes, a careful reading of that ruling will show that they have to amend the rules with respect to the first mode. And it's very important nga yung three-session days.
Why it amends in a way the Francisco doctrine, because the referral to the Justice Committee doesn't happen immediately. It has to be deliberated upon
yes.
in plenary
Yes.
by the members of the House of Congress. So it
studied.
does amend.
Yes, in a way, in a good way. In a good way. Yes, because they have to deliberate, they have to study
Because I think
before they
what
act.
happened, Sas, before was hindi daw nabigyan, yun yung complaint ng iba, hindi nabigyan ng time yung mga members, tapos
Basta
pumirma
pumirma
na lang
na lang.
agad. So I think maybe that's what they were trying to fix.
That's the same question here. When they referred it to the Committee on Justice,
May
was
nakakita ba?
everyone given a copy of the two complaints?
But in the old days, that was not done.
Precisely, automatic.
But, okay, if you are really, because the idea here is you want accountability of our officials, highest officials of the land, it's making it more difficult to exact accountability.
Yeah. It is incumbent upon the members of the House of Representatives to study an impeachment complaint filed before it and included in the order of business. They have the 10 session days when it's there in the order of business and 3 session days before it's referred. Ang problema dito, kailangang pag-aralan. Hindi dahil sa politika, referred ka agad.
I remember last year, Attorney, when we also spoke to you about the impeachment of Vice President Sara, you really underscored the importance of due process, because while the impeachment process is a sui generis, a class of its own, on its own, importante pa rin yung constitutional right to due process of the accused. So for this case of President Bongbong Marcos, will he be given a chance to file his counter affidavits, to defend his side, now that the first complaint is in effect in the Justice Committee?
Yes. Once, first, the Justice Committee should find the complaint sufficient in form. Then it has to find it sufficient in substance. When it does, then hearing where due process will be accorded the President.
If the Justice Committee does not disregard that second complaint, because right now their mindset, attorney, is to consolidate the two, right? And a lot of lawyers are saying na mas matatas talaga yung pangalawa, the one from the Makabayan block, like it's more solid in terms of attachments and appendices, mas kompleto siya. Could that still go through, the second complaint? I know you're saying that we were talking about the first one bars the second one, but if the House chooses to overlook that little thing and continue to consolidate, is that still possible?
Yeah. Then we will have several petitions in the Supreme Court
Will you
questioning that.
Will you be going to the Supreme Court?
No. I'll just watch by the side.
Attorney, February 6, the one-year bar rule for the impeachment complaint against the Vice President expires. So meaning, posibleng magkaroon, and there are already talks that there could be people filing, groups filing. What is the implication of having 2 impeachment complaints of the highest officials of the land? And in terms of hierarchy, ano ba, may uunahin ba yung House of Representatives doon?
There's no such rule. The House can tackle both at the same time. The Committee on Justice, there's no such prohibition.
But in the case now of VP Sara, because it won't be till Feb 6, your advice is for them to follow what the Supreme Court had said.
Yes. Even if there's no ruling yet on the motion for reconsideration, it's immediately executory.
Baka sinadya yun kasi they are allies of the president,
I don't want to comment on that again.
But can they change your rules? So, okay, with the president's impeachment complaints, hindi na amend yung House rules. Can they still amend the House rules before Feb 6?
Yes, they can. But I don't think it can apply to these two complaints that were already referred to the Committee on Justice. And in fact, they should. They should.
What should the president be doing? I'm sure he will engage counsel. Like as of now, should he already be represented in the Committee on Justice?
I'm sure that his lawyers are already preparing. Even before that was filed. These complaints were filed. Naghanda na yan. Pinag-aaralan na yan.
But if you have a fearless forecast, attorney, and I'm sorry to ask you this, but what do you think is going to happen? Madadrop ba itong impeachment complaint? Because some say, pagka masyadong mabilis, usually that's what happens to an impeachment.
Based on my experience, and with all due respect to the complainant and the endorser, that will be dismissed. It's just a question of whether it will be dismissed for insufficiency in form or insufficiency in substance. In form, I look at it, it will pass.
The second complaint.
I have not seen it. Although they were calling me before they filed to consult, but I was out of town.
So it won't be a first in history where you have the two highest officials of the land facing impeachment. The first one, based on what you're saying, is an open and shut case, dismissed. For a year.
No, they have,
Bumilang na yung isang taon.
they have 60 days to do that. So baka magkasabay yan. Magkakasabay yan.
So you're saying also, because it appears that there are many groups that will also be filing different complaints, the act of consolidation does not happen in the Justice Committee, but in the plenary.
Yes.
May you explain the process?
A complaint is filed with the Secretary General. The Secretary General is supposed to refer that right away so that it can be included in the order of business, 10 session days. So when it's included, by that time, the members of the House should be given a copy, not just of the complaint, but the evidence attached to it. Then they have 3 session days to deliberate whether to dismiss as a sham complaint. It's in the ruling.
Yeah.
They can dismiss sham complaints, or they can consolidate. In fact, they could have waited for additional complaints and then consolidated everything, all.
So, attorney, this so-called express lane mode of fast-tracking one-third signatures, when does that happen now? I mean, now that the Supreme Court has laid down all these rules, and as you mentioned, due process must be followed, kailan mag-a-apply po ang one-third option na yan?
That can already
still
take place now, but the House rules should be amended first. And with respect to the President, they have to wait for another year, because I think that the 1-year bar is already effective.
Already bumagsak na yung metro,
Yes,
kung baga.
with the first impeachment
Right.
complaint.
But give us the timeline, no? If they amend the rules and if there are many complaints, how long do you wait? And when, you don't know how many complaints you'll be receiving, right? So how is the timeline there in the House of Representatives?
It's also incumbent upon those wanting to file to prepare and file right away. Because once they filed, and the Secretary General, not the person but the office, is supposed to accept it right away and refer it to the Speaker for inclusion in the order of business. So that's 10 session days, then 3 session days to deliberate, dismiss, consolidate, then refer.
So
if
that
warranted.
puts pressure on other filers to hurry up and file.
That should be the case.
So mali rin yung ginawa nila when the Secretary General, the person, was abroad and did not accept the other complaints.
That was wrong.
So you believe
That
it's
was
really
wrong, yeah.
ministerial. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty easy to understand
Yeah,
too.
and it's in the rules, filed with the office of the Secretary General.
So that could be questioned as well with the Supreme Court.
Well, yes.
But it's a small thing, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. But if they
Yeah,
were to
but-
amend, if they were to call you right now and say, Attorney Francisco, what should we amend sa House rules? Ano yung dapat naming unahin? What would be like maybe the top 3 changes that you would make stat to the House rules?
They have to amend everything. They have to read, they have to study the Duterte ruling thoroughly, carefully, and just adopt what's there. No? Starting with the furnishing the Congress, all the members of the House with copies of the complaint once it's placed in the order of business, mandating that there should be deliberation and not express lane referral to the Committee on Justice.
During your time, was this 2004, no?
2000, yeah.
When it was Davide who was the subject of the impeachment complaint, how long did the Supreme Court decide? Why is the Supreme Court taking its sweet time, deciding on I think there are 6 motions for reconsideration before the Supreme Court?
It was
Natagalan ba?
no, hindi naman. Just a few months. I don't know if, the reason for why no resolution has come out yet, but for all we know, it will come out before
Anytime
February 6. Baka nga nandyan na yun.
Baka may nakita ka na.
Wala pa naman. Wala pa naman.
And in closing, what does this all say, this hullabaloo over, procedures, say about us when we demand accountability of our top officials, of impeachable officers?
Yeah, we should start with our elected officials in the House. They should do their duty. They should be loyal to the Constitution, follow whatever rulings are there with respect to impeachment. Ganun lang kasimple. Pag-aralan, when there's a complaint, really study, and guided by their conscience, do the right act. Of course, impeachment is a political process, but when we're talking of accountability, it's the welfare of the people which should come first. Diba? The duty to the people, not to the political leaders.
We thank you so much for your insights. That was Attorney Ernesto Francisco.